I've taken up the challenge of completing all the games in the Japanese catalog of the Sega Saturn. Although my Japanese language skills are rusty, I am determined to painfully translate my way through each game to achieve my goal. So come along with me on this adventure. Game number 9, Race Driving. Published and developed by Time Warner Interactive, released in August 1995 in Japan only. There is also a Sega Mega Drive or Genesis version of this game, released in November 1993 in North America only. The world in the game is displayed in full 3D polygon graphics, similar to its prequel Drivin. However, while it was impressive for the Mega Drive hardware, it appears outdated and unsophisticated on the Sega Saturn. The game goes straight to the start screen. All the menus are in English, apart from the options menu. In the main menu we have the choice between arcade mode, which I think are the races ported from the arcade version, real mode, which offers the same tracks but with some graphical enhancements, options and ranking. The game is using the high-resolution mode of the Sega Saturn in both the menus and gameplay. While this looks great in arcade mode, in real mode the extra graphics appear to be bringing the system to its knees and the frame rate suffers from it. I don't have the right equipment to capture interlaced footage yet, so you might notice the typical combine artifact here and there. I have ordered a RetroTink 5X and I have great expectations for games like this that are using the high-res mode. I like to start by going to the options menus to have an idea of what the game has to offer. Here we can choose between KPH and NPH, normal or practice mode. If traffic should be driving on the left or right side of the road, we want the Japan experience, so let's leave that to left. The level of difficulty, easy, medium or hard. Easy is the default, so I'll just leave it there. Whether or not we want instant replays when crashing, I left it on originally but turned it off later on. Stereo or mono audio, stereo is fine. Something to play sound effects and control mapping. The default control mapping is shift up on the left trigger and shift down on the right trigger. That seems weird, so I inverted that. The throttle is on the A button, brake on B and clutch on C. I'm used to having the throttle on the B button, so I fixed that as well. Enough with the options, let's see what the arcade mode has to offer. Here we can choose between 8 cars. I tried different ones but eventually settled for the sports car. Then we can choose between 3 racetracks: Super Stunt, Original Track and Autocross. We will have to finish first on all 3 arcade modes to complete this game. First race. My first impression is that it isn't too bad. Similar to reality, I feel like the best way to get a good time is by braking at the latest time possible, hit the apex and then exit the turn as fast as possible. In order to beat the track, you first have to beat the qualification time. You then have to wait until the countdown timer runs out to enter what they call a championship. Here you have 1 lap to race against an opponent. I tried different cars and tracks. Some of them took me a while to beat, even in easy difficulty. The most difficult one is probably Super Stunt. I kept getting booted out of the track on those inclined turns, even though I thought I was going slow. This jump took some time to master as well. I found that 155 kph is probably the best speed for it. Going faster than that causes a crash. Those loops can be quite difficult as well. You have to stay right in the center with sufficient speed, otherwise you'll crash. The second to last obstacle is that roller coaster hill. You'll have to slow down at the right time, otherwise, you guessed it, you'll crash. Too slow and you'll roll back. The last obstacle is that train in the middle of the road. I almost lost control here but managed to get it back. It took me quite a few attempts, but I eventually won the championship on Super Stunt. Original track feels a little easier. In qualification mode, we start with those other cars, but they are just here to disturb you. We get the choice between the speed track and stunt track, but only in qualifications. In championship mode, you can only take the stunt track. Not much to say on this one, it didn't take too much effort to beat. The final track to beat is Autocross. While it is very short, it was actually quite hard to beat as well. Once we qualified, the opponent always did a perfect race, giving no room for error. I haven't mentioned that yet, but if you lose the championship, then you have to start all over again. The most annoying part is having to wait for the timer to get to 0 once the qualification time is beaten. I think the aim of the game is to get the best score, and you have to run for as long as possible for that. I was only interested in beating the championship. I got there eventually. Once all tracks are beaten in arcade mode, then you get the credit screen, which means we can consider this game as beaten. This racing game wasn't too bad, but there are definitely some frustrations, like the car taking forever to slow down or having to wait over a minute after a qualification to tackle the championship. This was clearly a port from the Mega Drive, so the graphics and sound effects were not the best, to say the least. I didn't talk about the real mode with extended graphics, but it was almost unplayable with the irregular frame rate. For all these reasons, my fresh opinion was a need compared to the other games I've played so far. If you made it this far, then thank you so much for watching, and here is a preview of what's coming next. 3, 2, 1, go. We are playing... Is that booting? That star Bowling. The Star Bowling. Star Bowling is a 10-pin bowling game with FMV cutscenes. Players pick a partner from a roster of girls.